Hey, last weekend, an earthquake shook Washington, D.C., and it rattled the windows when Robert Mueller announced the conclusion of his investigation that found absolutely no evidence that President Trump, his family, his campaign, or his associates had anything whatsoever to do with collusion with Russia. Now, we've been lied to. I mean, lied to big. For over 2 years, the media, especially CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, and The New York Times, but pretty much all the media, have reported in over 533,000 articles, resulting in over 245 million media interactions, that President Trump had colluded with Russia. John Brennan, the CIA director under President Obama, actually said on television that the President of the United States was guilty of treason. Now, treason is a capital crime punishable by death. That's a pretty serious charge from the man who headed our intel agency when the so-called collusion supposedly happened and should have been both known and been able to be stopped while he was there. Well, by the way, network anchors have spent 2 years without a single broadcast in which they failed to disparage President Trump. Now, let me be real clear tonight. I'm not speaking as a supporter of the president or a Republican. I'm speaking as an American who respects the rule of law and values the Constitution. But both have been shredded by partisans on the left and, more sadly, by the people of the press, who are supposed to be the people's watchdog and supposed to speak truth to power. But they've turned into the other party's lapdog because they just hated Donald Trump and the deplorables who voted for him. Now, the media tried to overturn the results of the 2016 election, and they still can't accept it. Robert Mueller spent 2 years and about $30 million of your tax money. He hired mostly hardcore partisan Democrats among his 19 full-time attorneys, many of whom had given money to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now, in the course of this, they interviewed over 500 witnesses. They produced millions of pages of documents. They tapped people's phones, they confiscated their personal computers, and read their emails. They threatened some witnesses with jail time if the witness didn't plead guilty, just to get them to turn some kind of evidence against the president, his family, and his staff. And during this time, the media and congressional Democrats told us that they had seen evidence of collusion. Some even guaranteed that members of the Trump family would be indicted and the president wouldn't finish his term. And we were also told that the president would fire Mueller, try to impede the investigation, and obstruct justice. The media and the Democrats, but then I repeat myself, told us that Mueller was the gold standard of integrity and that we could trust his investigation to be fair and honest. Of course, they fully expected that he was going to deliver pretty much every person in the Trump orbit in an orange jumpsuit. Then the report was finished. And even among the Hillary-loving investigators who based the entire process on patently false information that had been supplied by the Hillary campaign, who conveniently paid $9 million to a research firm to make it up, they found nothing. Not one member of the Trump family implicated. And they found no evidence that he had anything to do with the Russians. Now, there was a conspiracy and a cover-up and an attempted coup against the president. It was staged inside the Justice Department and the FBI. And someone needs to be held accountable so we can trust our government again. And I doubt we'll ever trust the media. And by the way, we shouldn't. Their disgrace and embarrassing lack of integrity is only matched by their stubborn refusal to admit how shamefully they've behaved and how they've destroyed the institution of the press. The New York Times and Washington Post actually received a Pulitzer Prize for their reporting on the Russian collusion story. The Pulitzer is now officially about as credible as a green ribbon for third place in a high school scrapbook contest, thanks to that great award. One would expect that after the colossal fail of the attempt to bring a president down, both so-called journalists and Democrats in Congress would at best have the common decency to exercise the right to remain silent and just shut up. But one would be wrong. They've doubled down. and they've made fools of themselves, desperately trying to keep the flame of collusion alive. I fully expect that pathetic Congressman Adam Schiff will soon bring charges that Donald Trump kidnapped the Lindbergh baby, that he shot down the Hindenburg, he sunk the Lusitania, and he once tore off the tag on his mattress. Boy, I hope the ratings for the so-called news channels like CNN collapse in ashes, and that Americans send congressmen like Schiff home in disgrace, and that responsible Democrats, and there are a lot of them, I hope they'll join Republicans and the president and tend to our business, the people's business of protecting us, reforming health care, protecting Social Security for the people who have paid into it, fix our broken infrastructure, and yes, make those who abuse their power and positions to try and overthrow a duly elected president accountable by putting them in the very prisons that they reserved for their political enemies. That's what I hope.